Hi, I'm Josh Brahm. I'm the president of Equal Rights Institute. I'm an apologist. I focus most of my time thinking and working on the abortion issue. And I thought it would be fun to do kind of an Apologist Reacts series, taking a look at scenes in movies and TV shows where dialogue is happening or debate is happening between two or more characters. And instead of taking a look at them like a lot of the React videos that I love to watch on YouTube. I basically watch all of them. I love them. This isn't going to be as much about me talking about what is accurate or not. I don't know what is accurate or not in a lot of these things, and I don't care so much. What I'm interested in is, are the characters doing a good job doing dialogue? Is this a productive dialogue? And when I think of good dialogue, I'm thinking of, of all the people involved being reasonable and open-minded. It's not about rhetoric of who's got the best lines, although that is celebrated in a lot of these scenes more than good dialogue. But like in real life, you don't want dialogue about who is more rhetorical. You want it to be about trying to find truth. You've got two truth-seeking people, or maybe more, working together, hopefully to find truth. And so they're all open-minded. They're all open to the idea that they might be wrong. And hopefully by the end of the discussion or series of discussions, they are going to have found truth together. So I know that this is Hollywood, and I know that Hollywood isn't necessarily always trying to show really good dialogue. They are maybe going more for those rhetorical moments, those moments where a character has a really cool mic drop moment, really cool writing, like, today I'm focusing on West Wing. Aaron Sorkin is known for that kind of writing. And I love it. I love to watch it. This is one of my favorite shows. And I love those lines, even though I know I shouldn't try to mimic these people in real life. So the point here is not to get too serious and try to say, hey, these are examples of great dialogue. A lot of times they're not going to be because they're from movies or TV shows. But I think it's still a great opportunity to take a look and look for those examples of what is going well here. What are some things that we could maybe actually take some lessons from here and apply them to our own dialogues in our lives, with our families, with people that we are discussing controversial topics with. But also, I think we're going to see a lot of examples of bad dialogue moments, of things that people are doing that, regardless of whether or not the show is portraying it as a good thing or not, we can take a look and say, okay, if you want to have a good dialogue, this is not a thing to emulate. And the final thing that I'll do as part of this is at the end of each scene, I'm going to rate each character on a 1 to 10 scale for how well they did at productive dialogue. Again, not how rhetorical they were, not how intelligent they were, how good did they do at having, or at least doing their part in trying to create a productive dialogue. So today I'm going to focus on scenes from The West Wing. This is one of my all-time favorite shows. Here's clip 1.
What do you need, Leo?
Well, you've gone through everyone who works for you and everyone who's married to you. I didn't know who else you could get mad at, so I was afraid the American people might be next. Oh, by the way, when we're done here, you're sending Abby some flowers.
So by the way that they're talking, you can tell that they're best friends. Like, and another thing, like, something that's going to be a little bit inaccurate sometimes is there is a real power dynamic in a lot of the scenes in The West Wing. If you have a staff person talking to the president, there's a power dynamic there that isn't present in most dialogues that we have. But in this scene, you've got, Leo and Bartlett have been portrayed in the show as best friends even before they work together. And there are certain scenes where they're kind of wearing their hats of, president and chief of staff. And in this, it kind of feels more like they've taken those hats off and they're putting on the hats of more friends and confidants. And so I appreciate here that there is a level of trust in this friendship where Leo has kind of started this part of the conversation a little bit aggressively, or is at least pointed, but there's enough trust and goodwill there that Bartlett doesn't instantly react by being mad at him for that. He kind of sees like he's being called out for previous actions in the episode that are clearly, beyond the pale, not okay ways to treat people, and he's taking it. He's hearing him. He's reacting to it. I really like that.
Did you know that 2,000 years ago, a Roman citizen could walk across the face of the known world free of the fear of molestation. He could walk across the earth unharmed, cloaked only in the protection of the word civis Romanus. I am a Roman citizen. So great was the retribution of Rome, universally understood as certain, should any harm befall even one of its citizens. Where was Morris's protection, or anybody else on that airplane? Where is the retribution for the families? And where is the warning to the rest of the world that Americans shall walk this earth unharmed, lest the clenched fist of the most mighty military force in the history of mankind comes crashing down on your house?
Okay, so there's a couple things I liked and there's a couple things I don't like. I like in the beginning, and West Wing has this a lot, where a character monologues a little bit with some kind of a history lesson or some kind of an analogy that they're going to use from history. But I like that here because I feel like in that moment Bartlett is being pretty transparent about like what is going on behind the scenes. Good dialogues happen when we're being genuine, like really like not just genuine, but transparent, like kind of putting our cards on the table. This is a really important part of the style of dialogue that we teach at Equal Rights Institute. And in here, I feel like, you know, there's been this conflict this whole episode about how to handle this situation. And I think Bartlett is kind of opening up. Here's part of why he has been acting this way this whole episode, is he has things like this, history case in his mind. So I think that's really good. What I think is not as good to emulate is towards, after he talks about Rome, he's raising his voice. He's getting more kind of just like he's showing that exasperation. And that can cause people to feel defensive and like, maybe I don't want to have this debate right now because this is getting really emotional, and this might not be the time. Like, maybe not everyone is ready to have this conversation in as rational a way as possible. Obviously, it's TV, and they're going to have this discussion now. But I would not recommend you to, when you're making your point, be raising your voice and pounding your fist like that kind of thing. It's not going to make people feel as kind of emotionally safe to disagree with you. And that's what you want in the conversation. You want the person to feel safe to share what they actually think and not maybe pacify you because they're afraid of what your reaction is going to be when you state your disagreement.
In other words, Leo, what the hell are we doing here?
We are behaving the way a superpower ought to behave.
Well, our behavior is...
So I love that from Leo. Like, Leo's not super calm here, but compared to Bartlett, he's a lot quieter, but there is a slight firmness here, and I think that's totally warranted in his tone based on where Bartlett is. There's a place where too quiet could be like basically too weak, and so it's a direct answer to the question. And I think that's great.
What the hell are we doing here?
We are behaving the way a superpower ought to behave.
Well, our behavior has produced some crappy results. In fact, I'm not 100% sure it hasn't induced it.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about 286 American Marines and...
I like that question too. That is a clarification question, and kind of given how extreme, kind of like it's not just what Bartlett is saying, but kind of the like natural, like where does this go? Where does this argument go? What Bartlett is potentially advocating for, I think deserves here a little bit of a like that kind of that facial expression that Leo has. It's a little bit like this is a little crazy, but it's still a clarification question. It's still like help me understand what you're saying with a bit of a. You might be a little bit off your rocker on this. I think, given the context and given the tone that Bartlett is giving, I think that was pretty good.
Fruit. I'm talking about Somalia. I'm talking about Nairobi.
And you think ratcheting up the body count's gonna act as a deterrent?
You're damn right.
Then you are just as stupid as these guys who think capital punishment's gonna be a deterrent for drug kingpin.
Okay, so there's a thing I loved, and then there's a thing kind of that I kind of hated. I want to go back. Notice. When Leo kind of jumps in, he starts his sentence high, kind of almost matching Bartlett, which might be what effectively kind of cuts Bartlett off, which I think is okay here. Bartlett has really definitely made his point. Generally, don't interrupt people. I'm not going to give Leo a really hard time on that in the scene. But notice how he starts high and like immediately drops his voice down. That's such an interesting choice. But then calling Bartlett stupid for his view, not good. Like, I think, the general move here, this kind of, it's kind of a reductio ad absurdum kind of a move. It's reducing Bartlett's view to kind of an absurdity, but through analogy. He's comparing it to a similar kind of an argument that they're both going to presumably agree is absurd given their politics, but saying Bartlett's making the same kind of move. I think that's a fair argument to make, but there's a much better way to do it. If Leo had said, it seems to me being kind of an open-minded way of starting it. Maybe he's wrong. Maybe his analogy is off. Maybe there is a difference. So state that. It seems to me that you're making the same kind of an argument as this other argument that you and I both disagree with, and then kind of spell it out. That would be a much better way of saying that than to say you're just as stupid as these other people. But I want to go back a little bit so you can see that thing where he brings his voice down really quick.
Behavior has produced some crappy results. In fact, I'm not 100% sure it hasn't induced it.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about 286 American Marines in Beirut. I'm talking about Somalia. I'm talking about Nairobi.
And you think ratcheting up the body count's gonna act as a deterrent?
You're damn right
then
I
you
do.
are just as stupid as these guys who think capital punishment's gonna be a deterrent for drug kingpins. As if drug kingpins didn't live their day-to-day lives under the possibility of execution. And their executions are a lot less dainty than ours and tend to take place without the bother and expense of due process. So, my friend, if you want to start using American military strength as the arm of the Lord, you can do that. We're the only superpower left. You
quieter
can
now.
conquer the world, like Charlemagne. But you better be prepared to kill everyone. And you better start with me, because I will raise up an army against you, and I will beat you.
This is pretty good. Don't point your finger at people, but this was pretty good.
He had a 10-day-old baby at home.
I know.
We are doing nothing.
We are not doing nothing.
We're destroying.
4 high-rated military targets?
And this is good.
Oh,
So this is interesting to me. It's like they just reversed roles in the dialogue, where now Bartlett is the quiet one. He's like totally backed off here. Like he buys into Leo's argument, and now it's like Bartlett's argument is not so much we're doing the wrong thing. It's like, but there's this other thing going on, and it's more like this is a moment for Leo to be like, I know, I get it. This is like it's so hard. And instead now Leo is like the one raising his voice, which I think is really the wrong move here. Like you want to kind of like reward good behavior, and also like you want to like sort of like teach people how to treat you. And when people start behaving well in the dialogue, like you want to encourage that basically. It's like, for a similar reason, like if I'm in a Facebook debate or dialogue, I will sometimes actually like Facebook like the person's comment, even if I disagree with the content, with the argument. But if the person is being like respectful, not assuming the worst about me, like they're being charitable and just kind of presenting their side with clarity, I will like the comment. Because I want to encourage, like, hey, I like the way this person is having this dialogue. And so here I feel like, Bartlett has calmed down. I think Leo should have calmed down too. Let me back it up just a little bit.
He had a 10-day-old baby at home.
I know.
We are doing nothing.
We are not doing nothing.
We're destroying.
4 high-rated military targets?
And this is good.
Of course it's not good. There is no good. It's what there is. It's how you behave if you're the most powerful nation in the world. It's proportional, it's reasonable, it's responsible, it's merciful, it's not nothing. 4 high-rated military targets.
Which they'll rebuild again in 6 months.
Then we'll blow them up again in 6 months. We're getting really good at it.
Yeah, so like, it works really, really well in the scene. Don't like super raise your voice like that, but this is such a good scene.
It's what our fathers taught us.
Why didn't you say so?
So, okay, so there's something interesting that just happened here where Leo has made his argument and Bartlett takes this long pause. He's thinking. He's considering what Leo said. Now, as a general rule, we teach at ERI, we call this a thinking pause. When you've made an argument and someone needs to take some time and internally process that. And generally speaking, it's really hard not to interrupt that because it feels kind of uncomfortable. If you are the other person, like you kind of want to let them off the hook. At least if you're like me, you want to kind of let them off the hook and you want to kind of interject that silence. Like that silence is just an uncomfortable thing. It's a similar reason why people like even me, say a lot. Like you're interrupting the silence and indicating you're going to say something. You're just kind of thinking about it. And well, I just did it. So there's a similar thing here. Now, generally speaking, our thing is don't interrupt people's thinking pauses. At least, not within like 10 seconds. Like, give them some time. There's occasions, like if we're on like a college campus having a dialogue, if you like, there is some point where we'll say something because you don't want the person just like, just kind of like their mind drifts off and then they oh, okay, I'm just going to go to class now. Like at some point, jump in. I would have kind of liked it if after this pause, Bartlett was the first one to say something instead of Leo. However, now I'll kind of argue on the other side. Leo just says one sentence. It's kind of this little addition to his argument, but it's really quiet and something else for Bartlett to consider. So I'm pretty okay with it. It's a lot better than if like Leo like piled on with a whole new argument. He's just kind of added one little tag basically to his argument. So it's not too bad, but be thinking about this thinking pauses. This is one of I think the hardest things to learn in a dialogue. It's not just how to listen well, but how to allow people to consider your thoughts and take those thinking pauses and not interrupt them, at least not interrupt them too soon.
Our fathers taught us. Why didn't you say so? Oh man, here we go.
This is a really good moment. That little that physical touch there, and the way and like Bartlett's little kind of humorous response. Why didn't you say so before? This is very much Bartlett signaling, "I'm good. Uncle, you win. I concede." And really important, especially in a dialogue or a debate where the energy has been high or emotions have been high. Little things like that, little ways of finding of humor or just a little physical gesture like that says so much, even though it's unspoken. I really like that here.
When I think of all the work you put in to get me to run, when I think of all the work you did to get me elected, I could pummel your ass with a baseball bat.
This is like an extending that point. Like they have both now intentionally, without saying anything to each other, but they are both doing this very intentionally. Bartlett doesn't have to be making this comment. Leo doesn't have to be responding with this really encouraging laughter that he's giving. And humor has such an important role in dialogues. We have a podcast about that. I'll link to that in the description where we talked about the importance of using humor in dialogues. It's not something that I typically hear apologists talk about, but it can be really, really important for diffusing the tension. And that's exactly what is happening here, is Bartlett has changed the subject. He's made a joke and they're just taking time. They're enjoying each other's company. Which is just really, really key in this situation.
Oh, here's one you'll like. Bertram Coles.
Oh, I like anything that starts with Bertram Coles. Let's have it.
Coles goes on the radio yesterday.
And so now Leo is changing the subject to another thing that is going to be funny. And Bartlett is receiving it. Bartlett's encouraging, yeah, I want to hear the funny thing. And Leo is totally translating like this is going to be a funny story. Like, this is just a really nice way to end this scene, is them kind of, talking about other things of the day and laughing together. Okay, so that was this scene. So to rate them, I'm going to rate Bartlett at I'll give him like a 5 out of 10. a lot of raising his voice at the beginning wasn't good, but then there's some really good things that he did at the end. So I'll give him a 5 out of 10. I'll give Leo 7 out of 10. Okay, that's it for this video. I'm going to continue taking a look at West Wing scenes for the first several parts of this series, but then I will branch off to other TV shows and other movies. I'm definitely planning on doing some scenes from Marvel movies, so if you have favorite debates or dialogue scenes within the Marvel series, send them to me, post them in the comments, and I'll add them to the queue. Thanks a lot.